MA pros and cons, and MedSup pros and cons. Pros first. Jacob was throwing this sheet out. He could keep throwing these around if you want to. But this, if we're going to call on some people, what is, John Waller, what is a pro of Medicare Advantage?
No premiums.
No premium. All right. Good one. Jared, what's another pro of Medicare Advantage?
Dental, vision, hearing included.
All right. Johnny, another one.
Pro of Medicare Advantage after zero premium or dental, vision, hearing.
Coverage included.
All right. Part D included. Also at zero premium. Anybody else got another one? Kinsey?
Extra benefits.
Extra benefits, so like OTC, maybe Part B give back, something like that. How about rate stability?
A MOOP.
All right, another one, benefit. Don't think over MedSup, just in general. What's a
So
MOOP,
some of them put money back on your Part B.
right?
There's just one card.
One card,
And that one's stored up. Casey already
Simple.
filled it.
Benefits increase year over year instead of premium going up.
right? So rate stability,
Extra benefit.
right? All right, what about MedSup? John Waller?
You've got MedSups will cover the gap.
All right. So we'll say like predictable out of pocket. No surprises on out of pocket. No financial surprises. Low out of pocket. Low. That's Lou out of pocket. Lou. Low out of pocket. What else? You, John P. No network. Where's Love Lady? I have no Love Lady. All right. Popek. What is a pro of MedSup?
They took my answers, I was gonna say.
Okay. What about Jackson?
Typically, you don't have to deal with prior authorization.
Prior authorization. Pre-auth. All right. Okay. Now, what are some cons of MA? Yeah, that's a pro there. This is a exactly. Good start. All right. Networks. If I wasn't saying that as I was writing it, would you guys know what that word was? Good. No, that works. All right. What's another con of MA?
Max out of pocket.
I would say it's a maybe a higher potential out of pocket could be higher.
Yeah, depending on what the premium is.
If I was stating it as a con, I would say less predictable out of pocket. And this is a good reason I'm doing all this. MedSup cons. Tammy, what's a MedSup con?
Yeah, rate increases.
Rate increases. All right. What's another con? Drew?
Premiums in general.
Okay. How about doesn't include DVH?
No
Part D
extra
sold
premiums
separately.
Or no extra benefits.
Yeah.
Free groceries.
PDPs suck.
And they require underwriting.
Yeah, under.
Underwriting.
Not guaranteed issue.
Okay. Perfect. Now, let's talk about some of these here. Ready? Let's go MA, prior authorization. Because you guys have to sell Medicare Advantage and MedSups. There's some situations where Medicare Supplement's not viable for someone, and you need to be able to sell MA. And the biggest issues that they're going to have when they're coming down to prior authorization, and prior authorization and network is really the two biggest cons of Medicare Advantage. So let's attack them really quick. Prior authorization. 2026, there's already a law that is streamlining prior authorization. So there's this impending policy change that will impact prior authorizations to where they have to, when a prior authorization is submitted to a carrier, within 48 hours, if it's deemed urgent, they have to have a response, and they have to have public, digestible information as to why they're declining it. If it's a standard prior authorization, they have to have an answer within 7 days. Interestingly, talking to hospital managed care heads, they're already lower than that in their response time on average. So, just so you know, most of the prior authorization fear isn't all that rational. It's extremely rare in totality of actual prior authorization requests. Most of all, most procedures don't require prior authorization. When they do, the majority of those are approved. And then even more so, 96% are approved when they're appealed at the first appeal. So it's not as big of a deal as they think. And truly, North Mississippi Health Services has told us that their response times are already under 7 days on average. So it's very rare that one goes longer than that. It's probably getting lost somewhere. Also, going into 2024, all the carriers, the ones I can tell you for sure, United Healthcare, Aetna, Humana, all agreed to reduce prior authorizations across the board by 20%. So, prior authorization, big fear, very low probability of it being an issue. You know the difference between probability and risk. The risk of it happening is someone potentially gets a delay in a procedure being done and it's detrimental to their health. Okay? The probability of that actually happening, extremely low. Also, most people who have had group health insurance or Obamacare have already dealt with prior authorization. But for some reason, they're hearing prior authorization tied to Medicare Advantage as if it's a unique thing to Medicare Advantage, and it is not.
And if you remember when we were talking to a lot of the carrier reps when they were in here for their AEP rollouts, a lot of them were already saying that they've promised or they have improved prior authorizations process for this year. So like they're already saying that it's improved, but then there's going to be rules and regulations that's requiring them to provide this information in a couple of years. But right now they're already telling us it's an improved process from what it was in the past.
Yeah, most of the statistics that NBC Nightly is using to stoke fear in it right now are from 2019, so 5 years ago. It's 5-year-old data in a market that isn't that old. So 5 years is like 25% of the lifetime of the market, maybe even 33% of it. So it's not fair to use that data in something, same thing when the Senate Finance Committee is talking about this stuff and they're acting like there's a big problem and nobody's doing anything about it when CMS year over year has enacted new provisions and rules that they're not even paying attention to, asking them for more rules on top of rules on top of rules, which is typically what administrations like the one we have right now do. Now, Barry had a good question. Does original Medicare and a Medigap plan pay a doctor more than Medicare Advantage? The answer is no. What they're actually dealing with, some of them will say that, but what they're dealing with is that Medicare Advantage, and this is if you talk to the top level of bigger hospitals, they do make more on Medicare Advantage because they're consistently held to a standard of having the checks and balances of managed care. When they're on standard Medicare with a supplement, they pop in and out at the worst times. Now I have cancer. Something's growing on my ass. With managed care, it's like, hey, you have to go before all that stuff happens. And so not only are we getting to bill for all these things as it goes along, and the compensation increases by hitting check marks. If you're in an HMO and that HMO gets the colonoscopy that year, they get the mammograms, they get all the different things that they have to do, they get reimbursed more on that person over that year, okay? And so the reimbursement is actually higher if they do what they're supposed to do, and they're encouraged to do that.
But on a singular visit, or they're not getting more for that one thing.
So a billing person that looks at it could be like, oh, we're getting 83% on the claim, but they're not understanding that if they hit all the metrics they have, they might be at 100, and I'm just throwing numbers out there now, but they might be at 150% of what that claim would have been if they actually hit their metrics. So they're encouraged within that network to do what they're supposed to do. Does that make sense? All right, networks. That's another issue. Similar to what we were just saying, if it's an HMO network, there is benefit for people in being in the doctors and the hospitals, and the network is actually invested financially in the well-being of the members of that network. And just so you guys know, if you have people that are like hating this idea and they say, yeah, right, doesn't really matter what they think. Eventually, everybody is going to be on an HMO. The whole country will be in an HMO. That might be 15 or 20 years from now, but that's going to happen. Even if you're selling PPOs right now over HMOs, PPOs are way better than HMOs. There's people in the country that are like, why would anybody get a PPO? HMOs are so much sexier. That's going to happen everywhere. The step in the door is the PPO into markets that were harder to get into. And then as that membership grows and they know where their centralized claims are, they come in with HMOs like they've done here with North Mississippi Health Services and other places. And I get that the benefit difference between Aetna PPO and the Aetna HMO here isn't vast, but over time that'll change. And if you go into Miami-Dade or St. Louis or Birmingham, it's way different, way lower out-of-pockets. Anybody heard of the $500 or $1,000 MOOPs in Clark County, Nevada and Miami-Dade? Those are standard HMO Medicare Advantage plans for people that are middle income, and they have $500 maximum out-of-pockets in Miami-Dade. Their PPOs do not have anywhere near that. But that's because of the compensation that happens when a lot of people are part of a health maintenance organization and they're able to have all the checks and balances. And in those markets, the health outcomes are tremendously better. In fact, when you look at traditional Medicare with a supplement versus Medicare Advantage, the readmission rates to the hospital in traditional Medicare with a supplement are way higher. And that's from Kaiser Family Foundation, who is no friend to Medicare Advantage. So there are pros and cons to both here. And I'm just saying that because when you go to sell Medicare supplements, of course it's easy if I'm talking to somebody turning 65 and they're looking at both, and I'm like, you can get a $95 a month plan G and you can go to any doctor you want to and everything's paid for. Does that sound good? And they're like, yes, that's great. But when you're talking to the guy that didn't make that decision and now he's 70 and he has COPD and he can't get a supplement and he's thinking about just going traditional Medicare A and B, and then you start talking about Medicare Advantage, he's like, yeah, but prior authorization. You're like, yeah, that's right, they do suck. You should just go with Medicare A and B. You should not. You have unlimited out-of-pocket, and the things that are scaring you out of Medicare Advantage are not all that scary when you really break it down. There are people out there that stoke that fear to encourage people to get a med supp at turning 65. Hell, we do it a little bit because there is a little bit of a fear, but it's a little bit of a problem. It's not, you're going to die if you get on a Medicare Advantage plan. That's bullshit. Okay? So let's see. Now, on the separate side, rate increases as a con on Medicare supplements. Well, I have mixed feelings on this. So a lot of people do get into, with rate stability in the Medicare supplement market, you have states that are predominantly community rated, attained age, or issue age. Most states right now are attained age. More of them are shifting to community rated. Anybody want to venture what the difference between community rated and attained age in ratings for Medicare supplements is? Give me one.
Attained age, like going from 69 to 70,
Mhm.
it increases that way. Community is going by the bulk of everybody and doing it by the median age of
Right.
people.
So community rated doesn't use age as a premium factor. Issue age, like states like Georgia, uses age as a premium factor, but it's based on, it doesn't go up for age after they get the policy. It's based on the ages issued at. Attained age means it goes up with age benchmarks. But there are two different premium increase paths. There's the age portion of it. And with community-rated products like United Healthcare, they'll have diminishing discounts, which technically do create an age increase, but it's community-rated, so it's a little deceiving. But on the other side, there's annual rate table adjustments. So Medicare supplements go up based off of their claims ratios, medical inflation, all that. And a lot of times there's this slinky effect because the DOI both requires them to increase because they have to remain profitable to not be insolvent. An insurance carrier goes insolvent, it goes into receivership, letters go out to everybody, and now all of a sudden the State Guarantee Association is taking over the claims payments. It's not a great look for them. The insurance company basically goes out of business and gets absorbed by the other insurance carriers in that State Guarantee Association. So the DOI requires them to increase, but they also don't allow them to increase gouge. So it's based on like what they can actually prove that they need to increase. Sometimes they'll submit increases that the DOIs will tell them are too low, and they got to increase more. So with premium increases, we've seen issues where it gets to the point where it's unaffordable for people. And then that's why it's important to know how to position Medicare Advantage as an alternative for them and to overcome those objections that are rational objections, but probably overstated. All these objections are to the person that's coming up with them are way bigger deal than they actually are. And so you just need to be able to bring that back. What's the first step, Johnny, when they come up with an objection for prior authorization? What's the first step that you do to address it?
Well, I agree.
Agree with them.
Yeah.
That's the first step. You don't say, well, that's not a big deal. Ultimately, that might be, just because the point that you're trying to make is that something isn't a big deal, doesn't mean you just come out and say it, because it's not well received when you disagree with someone. So you agree with them, yes, prior authorization is a factor that everyone should consider when looking at Medicare Advantage. Let's look at prior authorization more, what types of plans have it, and let's talk about it a little bit. Then you talk about it a little bit, and you say, have you heard of any stories where prior authorization was an issue? And then you just, have a soft communication about it. And then it probably takes the fear out of it because they might have heard of the story. Then you ask them, do you know that guy? Do you know anybody that thinks they died because of prior authorization? You can just ask questions. But first, you want to agree. If they're worried about networks, first step, agree. Yes, with this plan, this is a PPO, and your preferred pricing would be better if you stay in the network. However, you can go out of the network. You just might have higher co-pays if you do so. Or it's an HMO. Yes, with this plan, you do have to stay in the network, but you're rewarded, and statistically, the health outcomes are better if you stay within that network.
What about having to get a referral?
Having to get a referral. If I'm on an HMO, then the reason, so I would agree with them. Yes, referrals stink. But the reason that an HMO does referrals is because with an HMO, you have a primary care provider who is ultimately responsible for your health outcomes and is reporting back and forth to the plan. Unfortunately, the way private fee-for-service has ran in Medicare for so long, people just kind of hop around without communication from one doctor to the next. So let me tell you a story, Mrs. Jones, and this isn't a singular story. Multiple times I've had this happen. I've had somebody walk into my office who's taken 36 oral medications daily. I've had people that are taking morphine daily, that are taking so many drugs, and those drugs are not interacting well. And that is almost always somebody on traditional Medicare with a supplement or a PPO. And why is that? Because nobody's having to report back to that primary care provider and have some sort of coordination of exactly what is this person on. Let's look at the total outlook here. Not, I'm a kidney doctor, so I'm going to put you on this, this, and this, and I'm a pain management specialist, I'm going to put you on this, this, and this, and I'm a pulmonologist, and I'm going to put you on this, this, and this. Who's had somebody that had over 20 medications? Do you think that there is a healthy reason that anybody should be on that? How many of them were probably on Medicare with a supplement or a PPO? HMOs just don't have that happen as much because that has to report back to that primary care office and they are responsible for it. So if you have a primary care doctor and somebody dies and they're on 36 medications, they come back and be like, why was this happening? And then there's discourse and then they actually get to make better, somebody might sue, but then there's also progress in the right direction to avoid that. So there's always good conversations there. You can make the case for why an HMO is better. Now, that doesn't mean if somebody's viable for a Medicare supplement that I'm trying to sell them an HMO. Don't get caught up on one product. Look at the solution that is best for them. Sell them what they want, then sell them what they need. Does that make sense? Somebody wants a Plan G, and you can get them a Plan G, sell them a Plan G. We love Plan Gs. But at the end of the day, when you look at an HMO and they're coming up with all these reasons that they're bad, there's just as many reasons on the other side that they're good. And you can come up with those reasons, right? Because ultimately, we're there to help with the financial side of it. Going on regular Medicare with no supplement, no Advantage plan has, catastrophic financial implications. That's our number one goal, is to protect there. Then if we can help with benefit structures they enjoy, peace of mind, whatever that is, we're going to sell them the plan that they're going to like the most that they can actually get. Got it?